Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to install the accessory power outlet, but rather than use the $85 Kawasaki part, I'm going to show you a much better and cheaper way. Alright guys, so if you take a look at the Kawasaki accessory, you can see that it's really nothing more than a simple 12-volt socket with a cover and then the wires that connect to the connections that are already on the bike. It's very simple and it's definitely not worth $85. So we're going to look at how to make our own. And just looking on Amazon here, you can get the same piece for $7.45. This is a waterproof 12-volt socket. All you would need is about 50 cents in wire, a set of bullet connectors, and you're good to go. In my case, I'm doing something a little bit different. I don't have much use for a 12-volt socket like a conventional cigarette lighter. So what I got on Amazon is something, it fits the same size. What you need is something with a diameter of 1 1/8 inches. And this has a dual USB socket as well as a voltmeter that comes on when the bike is on. And since the factory connection is already a switched connection, meaning that when you turn the bike off, the power is cut off to that connection, you don't need to worry about something like this draining your battery. So again, all that matters, whether you use a USB charger like this or a conventional 12-volt socket, is that the diameter is the standard 1 1/8 inches. To build something like the factory piece, you have this, you have the connectors that connect to that, that's all included. You would need 2 pieces of wire and a set of standard bullet connectors. In my case, I'm doing something a little bit different. I want to have this installed in the factory location, but I don't want to have to use it all the time. And I always use my phone, especially on longer trips. I use it for navigation and for music, and I like to have it always out and visible on my RAM mount, and I have a video showing how that RAM mount is installed. So for that reason, I like to have a dedicated power cable just for my phone. So what I'm using is the battery tender USB charger. You can get these for 10 bucks. I've had one of these in the past and I've had great luck with it, using it constantly. And this just has a simple USB connection and it connects to a standard SAE or battery tender lead. So I put some double-sided tape on this. I'm going to mount it underneath one of the fairings, and then I'm going to have a phone charging cable come out with all the other cables that come up to the handlebars, just like this, and then this will be used to power my phone. This is just a basic Anchor charging cable. I have an iPhone, so this is a lightning cable. And then I picked up a set of these silicone cable covers, so anytime that I'm not using this, I can keep that covered and keep it protected from the weather. The way this is going to be set up is basically coming from the factory connection, and we'll represent that with these 2 bullet connectors. These are going to plug into the bullet connectors that are already on the bike, and we're going to have 2 sets of wires coming out like this. This thinner set is going to connect to this charging socket, and then this SAE lead is going to connect to the battery tender. So all we need to do is make these connections and then make these connections over here. We'll start by stripping some wire. I'm using a crimp tool. I typically solder or crimp all my connections. You can go the lazy way and just use electrical tape and hope for the best, but I always like to have a good reliable connection. And you might be thinking that you don't have all of these tools, the crimpers and wire and all of that stuff. Even if you bought all of these tools, you're going to still come in at less than half the cost of the factory, the $85 cigarette lighter. As you're doing this, it's important to remember what wires are going to be positive and negative, especially if you have multiple connections coming out. So it's not necessary that you use red and black wire, but I do that just to make it visually easier to see what's going where. And then also, this is a battery tender brand cable, so it's a little bit higher quality than some of the generic ones you can get. The generic ones will work fine, but you can see with this one, the insulation under the top insulation is also color coded, and that's correct for this setup. Alright, now I'm just going to put some heat shrink tubing on. This is not really for insulation, but more to just hold these two pieces of wire together. Now when you're looking at the bike, there's going to be two connections, and they look just like this, and I'll show you where they are on the bike. You have a male connection and a female connection. On the bike, where the power is coming from, the positive connection is the female lead because it's the one that is covered. So if this were to touch something else, metal in the bike, it's not going to short out. The negative lead is the one that's male, that's exposed, so if it were to touch anything, it could potentially ground out and it would be okay. So in our case, because this is going to be the positive connection on the bike, we're going to make this the positive connector on our wiring setup. We just use the lighter to lock the heat shrink down. And that's it. That's how easy that was. So these two connections are going to plug in on the bike. These two connectors are going to plug in on this, and this will go right into the accessory socket, or the hole for the accessory socket. And this just plugs in like this, and we'll have this stuck in underneath the bike, and this will plug into that. Pretty easy. So now let's go over to the bike and get this thing installed. Alright, now that we're at the bike, the first step is going to be to remove the fairings on the left side. If you're not sure how to do that, check out my video. I'll have a link in the description that shows how to take off the fairings. And then the next step will be to remove this protective cap. What you might want to do is use a 4mm Allen wrench and take out this bolt. Taking this out will let you move this fairing a little bit, this cover right here. Then you can use a short screwdriver and look for a Phillips screw on the back. And you'll just loosen that. So this is the cap that was in the accessory port and the bracket that was holding it in. Next, we're going to install our accessory charger. And then install the lock ring from the back. Alright, you'll just want to make sure that everything is lined up the way that you want. The electrical connections that we're going to use are up here at the front of the bike. You can see them right there. This is the positive lead, and that is the negative lead. And then just for your information, the connections for the accessory heated grips are right here underneath that. So again, these are the connections that we're going to use right up here at the front of the bike. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is hook up these spade connectors to the back of the thing that we just screwed in. And you'll want to check this before you install this, but this has a positive and negative on the back. In my case, the positive is the connection that's the closest, so we're going to hook up the red wire to that and black to the other side. Alright, now we're going to connect our bullet connectors to the factory bullet connectors. Alright, now we've got the bullet connectors connected. Alright, so now we're going to hook up the battery tender USB charger. Just stick that under there. That way it's protected from the rain. And what I did is I took the USB charging cable, I ran it through here behind the fork leg, and this is just going to plug in here. And like usual, I don't get the USB oriented the correct way the first time. There we go. Alright, so if everything's hooked up correctly, when I get the bike started, we should see the voltmeter on this come on. And there it is. Alright, so what's nice about this setup is we have this lightning cable that's always here. It just runs up through this bundle of cables. As I mentioned before, it has the rubber rubber protector for the tip. And then we can just plug this into the phone. And it shows that it's charging. And then when you're not using it, put the cap back on, and just set that out of the way. And then down here we have the 2 additional USB slots and the voltmeter, and this cap is clear so that you can see the voltage readout even with the cap on. That keeps it waterproof. Alright, hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching.